Welcome to the Editors Podcast. Of course, is your usual political heavyweights in the room. Pleased to have the top editors of Standard Group. Kindly introduce yourself, gentlemen.
My name is Ken Mijungu, editor KTN News. Yes, and a regular here.
Yes,
on the mic.
I'm Kipkoech Tanui, head of news at the Standard Group, and also a political commentator and writer.
Welcome, Tanui and Ken. Of course, I'm Charles Otieno. I'm your host today. Gentlemen, there's a tiff, or we call it, is it a tiff or a disagreement between the president and the former president over the allocation of office and funding of his office? Ken, what is your take?
5 years before the election, they were fighting throughout. It's been only 2 years, and the fight seems to continue. However, the difference now is this fight is based on law and tradition, how things should happen. Law in that the Presidential Benefits Act gives something to retired presidents. We have the third retired president in the country right now. And then obviously tradition is that presidents former are treated very nicely, right? And they are respected as heads of state and heads of government. So they exit the stage and then become elders in this country. So there's that feeling now that a former head of state is being treated badly, but the reasons they're giving is based on his statutory benefits. So that's the issue here.
Now, Tanui, these statutory benefits, is it the case of Raila's 2010 he also was mistreated over his benefits? Is Uhuru crying like more than bereaved?
No, I don't think. I think, first of all, I want us to draw a line between the uniqueness of the situation that Ruto and Uhuru are in. There's clearly a law setting out what should be done, which was supposed to cure the treatment of the retiring president like it was a favor being done by the one who was in office. Now the line is actually drawn. Like Ken is saying, maybe the interpretation is being made in a way that is prejudicial to the other. But the law is clear. I was amused when I was looking at the social media reaction by Kenyans that Uhuru is a billionaire, the Kenyattas are rich, but we elected them president. So therefore, automatically, this is his entitlement. Whether you are a pauper when you are retiring or you are a billionaire, you have to get what is designated and set aside for you by the law. So I don't think we would really compare this with Raila, because this is about the presidency. And if you looked at the statement that came from Uhuru yesterday, he was not saying Kenya's fourth president. He was actually saying the third retired president of Kenya. The one who is alive and is outside office. So I think it is very, very clear that there is a process that has to be set. And I think when I look at it as we came into this recording studio, you saw the message coming in that the president has tweeted that he has instructed the head of public service, Felix Koskei, to chair a team that will look at the interests or the conflicts about how to handle the retirement of President Uhuru in terms of office, cars, allowances, payment of staff. That to me seems to be an attempt by the president to deflate the rising perception that Uhuru, because Uhuru, I think, by unleashing that while in South Africa and using his spokeslady, was setting a stage for that would the Kenyans or his people who are sympathetic to him against the president. And what was it? To paint the picture that he's a victim of a vindictive, petty presidency, painful, that they are going after him, yet he handed over power peacefully. Of course, he argues when he's asked, "You're still holding a political office," but they went to court. I said, "I have nobody to hand over the office." Thank you.
The Jubilee, but thank you. Tanui, you remember you guys went to Uhuru when he had that press conference, and now what did you pick from that meeting?
I think before that, perhaps we put to context what he says.
Yes.
Because this is a tweet from Hussein Mohammed, and I like what he says. Uhuru Kenyatta coming out at this time is supposed to achieve something. And I'll tell you what he's likely to achieve. The mountain is rumbling. There are factions that have taken sides against the president. About 8 to 10 government officials have defied the deputy president.
Yeah.
Listen to what I'm saying. Have defied the deputy president, which means the other ones are still with the president, right? So there's a way the deputy to defy someone. It means they want something. But let me put this to context. So this is Hussein Mohammed tweeting. This morning, President William Ruto had a conversation with former President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah.
Phone conversation, email conversation, not clear, but they had a conversation regarding the concerns about facilitating the functioning of the retired president's office. President Ruto has consequently constituted a team led by the head of public service to immediately address all issues raised, including the location of the retired president's office and the attendant staff establishment. Now, we should look at Hussein's statement today in context of the letter that was released by Mwaura yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's completely pulling apart.
Yeah.
Mwaura's statement, to say in the least words I can, was rude and dismissive.
Yeah.
Explained everything, but it was very dismissive of the concerns. This is very reconciliatory.
Yeah.
But one thing that the office of the third retired president has achieved is to draw the president into this debate. I asked a specific question yesterday to Kanze Dena. Have you had this conversation? Has he spoken to his successor? Kanze's response was, there is no conversation that has gotten to the point that they need to sit and talk.
Yeah.
What has happened today?
They have
This
spoken.
conversation has effectively drawn President Ruto into this debate. I mean, President Uhuru Kenyatta doesn't even need to know the price of mandazi and cooking fat and samosas that we ate yesterday at his place, right?
Yeah.
The State House Comptroller should be submitting the budget allocation 655, 503, and then 579.
Yeah.
2022, 23, 655, 34, 2023, 34 was 503. Now they've done 579 million shillings. President Uhuru Kenyatta doesn't have to know how much money he sent, but that is where we are.
Yeah.
So for a conversation like this to happen between presidents, it tells you how serious this is. And that's why I go to Tanui's statement. The mountain seems to be pulling away from the president because Rigathi Gachagua is seen as the leader.
Yeah.
Them releasing this statement yesterday was very timely. What does it do to the mountain? There's very pulling from this statement. So this reaction from the president is timely.
Yes, and when you talk about the mountain, what is the beef that they have with the president? At the subtle, very subtly, they say at that very subtle level, they keep saying that the president will present you one face that you of honest and trust and dependence, reliability. That is what is his currency, is his bond. But they believe that there are cards he plays, and what Uhuru has done is to play right into to smoke him out, because then if he keeps quiet, Uhuru will tell his constituency that, look, I'm a victim also like Gachagua of that pretense, that smoke screen. He's not too...
The facade.
The facade.
Yes.
He says, tuko pamoja, lakini ni kama kuna wenye, like we said the other time, kuna wenye wanakula mahali mzuri kwa ile nyama, ile upande ile mnyama tuliua, na kuna wenye wanakula mkia.
It
goes back to Raila saying, hata mkia ng'ombe ni nyama. Alipoona maneno imeenda. So I think clearly, the timing, I agree with Ken, the timing was perfect for
spot on.
Yes. And it leads to another kind of scenario. If this issue is not addressed very quickly, Gachagua and Uhuru will have no reason to spite each other the way they used to do. They need each other because they want to that block, the one that is crumbling, that we are victims, we've been sidelined, we are not being treated the way we are. If Uhuru can be treated like this, why not me, Gachagua?
So Tanui, you're saying that there's also another word in the mountain, the villager. Is it, out of all this fight, is it why the villager is taking currency there?
We are all villagers.
The villager is a very hilarious thing. Let's go back to the Kado cartoon that showed Ruto and the you remember the cartoon that depicted Ruto on that Asla jet, lying and being massaged. I don't know what. He was very furious. But then I think he later turned it into a positive thing and a movement and said, with the Asla nation. So now Gachagua has also looked at it. He's been complaining. People say I'm not very civil. I still need to be, what we discussed the other day, extreme makeover. But then when you call him the villager, Of course, the villager in politics, because he's restricting to his political cocoon, he's decided to make it a movement. And I don't remember the Kikuyu word for it, but there's the version, the villager. So it's a political game he's playing. And soon you'll have the Asla mentality as the villagers. Technically, we don't know, because they are supposed to be the people at the bottom
of the pyramid.
Of the pyramid.
Exactly.
All of them.
I don't know whether now it will be the Asla nation versus the villager nation. I don't know.
I think it's borrowing from the hustler. The hustler, they are the people on the lower side of the pyramid, right?
Yes.
The bottom side of the pyramid.
Yeah.
And they are the majority. Gachagua using the word villager is just taking the word hustler and converting it to something that coheres with a lot of people. Still, it's the same constituency that they appealed to as the presidency right now, that Gachagua is appealing to as. But remember, he has really coined it around his backyard.
You asked Charles. You asked us about last year, July. Myself
what
and
happened?
Ken,
Yes. We went there.
We went there.
And
first of all,
What
let
did
me begin with the hilarious part. He was the driver.
Yes.
And it was not a meeting between me and Uhuru and Ken alone, but there were many editors. And we were using the GPRS. And the GPRS took us to Gate D of State House. Then, when it said you have reached your destination, there are GSUs coming to ask, where are you going? On the side, it is a wall.
We didn't know about Caledonia. What is it?
Caledonia.
At that time, we didn't know what it was.
So the Uhuru's home, which is now an office, is actually a segment of State House. Only that in title deed, the title deed is different. It's part and parcel of State House. And I think to President Ruto, who has talked about dynasties, there is no bigger symbolism of the dynasty than a president, a son of a president,
living,
son of a former president, who became president, living inside State House, and from where he is now, you can actually see.
And actually, he has a helipad and is licensed to land at the institute. So a helipad landing there is landing in State House.
And of course, at that time they said, maybe it's a security risk to have the former president's office here with civilians. But people need to ask themselves, why did Uhuru decide to abandon his home and turn it into an office and go and build a home elsewhere? I don't know, but it's still within the realm of power. So when we went there, I will begin with my own observation. I was very, I can say what, I was a bit cynical about Uhuru because of how he had treated the media. And to be told that Uhuru has called the media for the news conference was in itself a contradiction. Remember, he had said, Gazette ni ya kufunga nyama. He kept saying we are propagandists. Then at night, he's somewhere, and the police arrive at the home of the son, and he comes breathing fire. And the next day, I think there was 2 days later, we are at State House, and he's now crumbling. And in fact, the first question that was asked, Mr. President, did you anticipate Your Excellency, did you anticipate a situation where one day you will actually call the media to complain and to lament about a matter? And he said, I apologize, but at that time I misunderstood you people. So I think it was a humbling experience that the president was actually swallowing the humble pie. That is one. The second thing that actually came out very clearly was that Uhuru was bitter at heart because he enumerated situations that seems to actually point at desecrating the office of the former vice president, former president. One is, if you remember, Ken, he says, I go to my car and I don't know who are the security seconded to me that day. So I sit there and I ask, so nyinyi ndio mmetuma leo mnichunge? Imagine. Number two, he said, the employees there, including cancer that time, that's last year, July, have not been paid. I don't know how they survive. Of course, that was a way of saying I'm paying. So there were these lamentations that showed that you would not want another former president to go through. And I think when I went there, the message that I seem to get from Uhuru is, if President Ruto, if you are after me, come for me direct, not through my children and not through my mother. And she even said, a 90-something year old woman. And, that touches the heart of Kenyans. That grandmother, what is happening to her, great grandmother to many. And you look at it again. would President Ruto want to be associated with a president like that? That he has come in, Kibaki handled the President Kibaki President Moi in a very, very civil way.
Yes.
Remember when they wanted to take
the house
in Kibera,
the Cabernet Gardens.
Cabernet Gardens.
Yes,
it is Kibaki who said Kiraitu and
Buranguru wanted.
Clear.
Yes, they wanted it. Yeah.
You go to Kabarak, we ran the government, and they were saying this is a government, and it is Raila and Ruto who stepped out that time and to defend
Moi.
But it was civil. And not to mention, of course, the fact that even the house Kibaki himself was living in was Treasury's house.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, if and the house that Moi used to be in used to be the Jaramogi's when Jaramogi was vice president. That's where he was. Yeah. And Moi came in. Yeah. So the point is, what Uhuru was doing is throwing it out to the public. For the public to judge, the court of public opinion. Yeah. Even if I took a different political opinion about the succession, even if I decided, I exercise my democratic right to say Ruto is not fit for presidency, according to me.
Yes.
I should be respected because that is my opinion, and I brought it to the public.
And guaranteed under the Constitution.
So you were saying, should I be penalized for that? Should it affect my family? And remember, that came against the backdrop of the huge taxes falling, the Kenyatta family dismantling of his businesses. Yeah. So at that point, then, when we were listening to the president, to the former president, the Kenyans must be asking themselves, can it degenerate this far? Can it come this low? Should it be allowed? Yeah. And if it does, then what precedent are we setting for future presidents? Yeah. Remember, Charles and Ken, the reason why these benefits were set out in law was to encourage presidents to retire and not cling to politics. It was it was a bait that do not fear life outside the presidency. Yeah. Yeah. Will give you a measure of the privileges you had. So when you seem to undermine that, what does it look like? Would you think that the Constitution to punish somebody? And therefore, I think what Uhuru was saying, judge for yourself. This is the president you have. I did my part. Yeah. It's up to you. It's a pity that 1 year, almost a year later,
same complaint.
The same issues.
1.1 billion shillings later, only 28 billion.
Yeah. The only difference
only 28 million, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And the difference now is, which is very sad, and I think it's something that auditors need to look at. Uhuru is actually saying the money is allocated, but I don't get. So where does the money go?
Yes.
And can you...
You know, that's a fundamental question.
Yes.
Where was this money spent?
Yeah.
And I think, therefore, it was only natural that the President Ruto would no longer
keep quiet.
Yes. Yeah. Because everything is coming this doorstep.
That's a B. That's a billion shillings.
Yes.
That's a billion
shillings. So, Ken, you looked at the figures, and Tanui has really explained the background, and you are there also.
Yep.
If you look at Uhuru's and the agreement, the disagreement, do you think he has valid points?
Who has valid points?
Uhuru, to raise this now.
No, but you see, and I saw this yesterday, and it was very deliberate of Uhuru's office to do this. Yeah. They never talked about the fourth president of Kenya. It was very deliberate.
Yes.
They spoke about the office of the third retired president.
Yeah.
Once they did that, this thing went legal. It was no longer an issue of presidency and occupying the office. It was a legal issue now to be determined here. So they were very clever with their wording and phrasing and even the choice of words that they were using. I remember one of the things that was in that statement before the conclusion was Kanzedena saying, we do not wish to engage in such a manner in issues that can be handled by both offices. Right? So there is no justification. I think purely this is an issue of law. This is an issue of customs and traditions of the country. And what Tanui is putting out there is the most important. Regardless of how, I should say irregardless. Regardless of how long President Ruto will be president, he will be former president. So when you're setting precedents, when you brought the issue of Raila Odinga, well, his falls totally under different law of benefits.
Yeah.
This is only presidential benefits. So his falls differently. But the truth is this. At the end of Ruto's term, 5-10, You'll be a retired president. There will be a different president. Kenyans will determine that president. How would you want to be treated at that point? Right? That is the moral question we have to ask, even as we back it with the law, with the Presidential Benefits Act, right? Retirement benefit. We have to ask that moral question. So we cannot justify it based on the treatment and based on what happened pre-election, because Article 38 of the Constitution straight up gives Uhuru an opportunity, the right to choose
whose successor is.
who he wants to associate with.
Yeah.
You choose which political party, which individuals. Article 38 of the Constitution of the Supreme Law. So his association with the former Prime Minister, Azimio leader, Raila Odinga, cannot bring him to a point that he has to beg for his office to be facilitated. Yet it's an issue of law and it's an issue of tradition, which if you break, you ask yourself, in 10 years, I don't know who's going to be there. So how would I want to be treated? But the other question that a lot of people are asking, especially, I know you're going to the issue of the office, asking, what is the value of the words in Section 5E of the Benefits Act?
Yes.
What is the value of that? So when you say suitable, for example,
Yes,
I know
suitable office.
then it talks about provided and
suitable.
maintained.
Yeah.
Right? What is the value of that word? Suitable, Charles. What is suitable to you? Can I just today stand up and say that seat is suitable for Charles?
No,
Or I
we
should
have
give
to
you an
decide.
opportunity to even try and say this is suitable. So in consultation, that was Nyari was a choice of the retired president Kibaki. It was his choice. Muthaiga straight, iyo barabara inapanda hapo juu, you get to Nyari, right?
Yeah.
It was his choice.
Yeah.
Is it a choice? Then when we give the president's choice to choose their offices, if you are the 6th president, Charles, would you now say, I want my personal office in CIA? It's suitable for you because you're retiring, you're going home.
Yeah.
So we are lost in translation as Kenyans when we speak about that specific section, what it means. So we need an interpretation, and this was done by A.G. Githu Muigai when they came to the consideration of where President, his soul rest in peace, Kibaki wanted his office to be. So he said, it doesn't matter whether it's owned by the family or it's owned by the individual, right? What matters is, are we providing it? And we are not. The issue now should be, is the state paying for an extra office for Uhuru Kenyatta or specific office? Remember, Caledonia, or now it's called Uhuru Kenyatta Institute, has been converted into an institute. There are offices there. There are offices. It was staff quarters, security quarters. Straight up, Uhuru converted it into offices. So he's saying, don't pay for the whole of this building. Don't pay for what you see here. And even there's a letter in our folder that they requested for valuation of that property. The response was verbal and text messages. State House has never sent someone to verify, at least from our end, because we have the letter. We don't see the letter from State House on the valuation. They said, come and value this office and tell us how much it will cost and pay that. They requested that. The section of the office, not the whole place, not the whole institute.
Yeah.
Towards Gate B, the public gate that we use. There's staff quarters that have been converted into office. That is what they're using, not this other one. So that also needs to come out as true as it is. That indeed they're not asking pay for the whole of this compound, pay for our offices inside Uhuru's compound, converted for that purpose.
So,
yeah, but I wanted to tell Ken, I actually was surprised when Uhuru said regardless. Then I checked in the dictionary and it is actually appropriate. So,
Irregardless is the dictionary.
Yeah, it's American fashion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
regardless is allowed.
It's allowed.
It's allowed. I was so surprised.
Oh,
So
People still think.
so every week he teaches us. He told us the other time, don't allude.
Don't
Allude.
Yeah, today he's told us
regardless.
Tanui always,
we learn. Yes.
I always, because when Tanui used to write his commentaries,
Yes.
I used to pick things, and that's why I told him the other day, the fight between the Kalkini cats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing that I can let's put the law aside. Let's put tradition aside.
Aside, yeah.
We are talking about the bitterness that Uhuru brought to the public sphere last year, July. It's up to now, it's not been resolved, isn't it?
Yes, it's not.
That's why it's coming out again.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, and I saw text messages. The office of the current president addressing the needs of the other or no SMS.
Yes.
It's really, really disgraceful.
Unofficial.
Yeah.
Unofficial
It's unofficial.
letter
Yes.
that we require this. Playing politics about it.
Yeah.
the government spokesman tried to introduce a twist that, they are trying, it is a conflict of interest because he is the owner of the house. In fact, to me, Kenyans gain by Uhuru being in that office because he'll only be paid what used to be called owner-occupier.
Yeah.
Then after farmer later, God forbid, it reverts back to the Kenyatta family. So it's not an asset that is being bought to sit there.
No.
Yeah.
It is cheaper. But what I was more interested in is, in politics, you really have to look at the signal you are sending to the public, whether by law. You can't carry on the Bible on the one hand and a dagger on the other, and you smile at me and you say, oh, this is how we are. I expected that the triumph mood that Ruto and Gachagua had would have now thawed, would have been deflated.
Yeah.
And now the statesmanship comes in,
Yeah.
not the beating of chest, the triumph. We've crushed you, we beat you, we are stepping on you. We want to prove that you are getting. It's now time to sit back and drive the country towards one unitary direction, heal those wounds. But you see, the disintegration is not only within the former government, but it's also coming in the current. So how many fissures do you want to open?
How many fights
How many fronts do you want?
Yeah.
So there's a time to sit back and say, I don't know, what will Kenyans remember me for? I know we can talk, he has very good ideas and all that, but will the sum total of central Kenya view of Ruto's presidency be that he crushed our former president
That's
Uhuru
how it
Kenyatta,
looks right now,
and now he's working on Gachagua?
Yes.
And what does that portend for the spirit of nationhood? Because they say the presidency has one single role other than the duties.
Yeah.
It is the symbol of Kenya's unity.
National unity.
The unity, the Kenya.
Yeah.
So once you are there, these sycophantic wars, these little wars about you have to be above them.
Which are not
and I
progressive
think
at
on
all.
this one, it was played when Uhuru came out. At first, it was played at the level of junior people, but the magnitude rose, and I'm sure the president must have been told the mood in the country is that you are the one on the wrong side.
Yeah, right.
So
now.
he has to show. Yeah, I think I suspect so. He would not have come up with that tweet, contradicting even what the mood they had said yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, and give it to Uhuru by giving it to Cancer Dena.
It was a master stroke.
Exactly.
It's a master stroke.
It's a master
We
stroke.
all told Uhuru is there. Media houses rushed.
Yeah.
We were all
Master
there.
stroke.
20
anyway,
plus.
Cancer Dena is the spokesperson of the president, of the former president. So, by all purposes, it was the president, the former president,
who's speaking. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you look at, gentlemen, if you look at, and towards the end, if you look at the whole sum of these fights, the Rigiji battle in the mountain, and the fights against and Azimio also trying to get, where do you see this Ruto presidency?
I'll sum it up in one word. The president needs to pick a fight he knows he can win. That's it. He needs to pick a fight he knows he can win. And all these fights could extend to 2027, however you look at it. But he needs to pick a fight he knows he can win. And the fight he can win right now is bringing back Kenyans together. That's a fight he can win. He will not win the fight of finances. He will not win the fight of the budget. Those are things that we're coming back here. I'm sure you'll call us in 1 day or 2 days to discuss the finance bill.
No, we are going to come and discuss bill.
But there are so many fronts
Yes.
that will defocus the presidency, like you've counted them.
Yes.
He will not focus in delivering his mandate. Charles,
Yes.
I was in Bomas in I think it's less than 2 years ago, or about 2, no, less, we're not in August. Less than 2 years, 2 months to 2 years.
Yes.
Boss, it's 2 years gone. We have only 1 year to work for Kenyans. 2025, 2026, we're not doing anything for Kenyans. Only 2025. This financial year, 2024, 2025, is the only year Ruto has to work for Kenyans. 2026 is not working. 2027 is an election. You pick a fight, you know you can win. What is a fight?
Yeah, and you know, in the life of a nation, 10 years is very short.
Yeah.
The race between now and the next election and the next is very short. So you can't, it will not be too far perfect to say 10 years is just very weak in politics. So many things will happen. But for me, it is too early to have these fights. People crumbling. I think I would wish the president heals the nation, silences his foot soldiers, and as we said last week, find a way to give personal guarantee to Gachagua that he's not being targeted for removal. When he said he was stuck in Naivasha, he arrived late at a function. He looked a bit lost. And he said, he had problems even arriving there. It took him 2 hours in Naivasha. I don't know whether it was organizing for the flight or all that, choppers, but there are a lot of things. But for me, I think it would be tragic if the narration that Uhuru is being is a political matter. At the same time, you have Gachagua, and we go slowly like this. It will draw, the battle lines are very clear. You heard from, I say the other time, Sudi and the like. It's clearly becoming a Rift Valley
versus Mountain
versus Kikuyu. It's actually a Kalenjin Kikuyu issue.
Yes.
The rest of Kenyans are just watching. And the friction points between the two communities would sadly start wrapping if this is sustained. The essence of and the card of conviction that Ruto sold to Kalenjins when he was bringing Uhuru and Uhuru to Kikuyus was that we are healing this nation. Never again will these communities come for a fight. It was so well. I'm not saying that it's automatically a declaration of war, but these friction points, these small sparks will lead to a fire if not contained. What we are seeing are the flickers of ethnic rivalry that has been buried over the years, that was being that had been closed over and healed by shared power. See, there's nothing that unites two enemies more than one when they have something that they need to work together to benefit. When the common denominator of friendship is reconciliation between two enemies, is there must be something that we have. I need you and your hand to pull it, and we win. It's a win-win situation. So I hope this does not set the tone for the election and lead to a situation in which it will be again another 41 against 1, or was it 42 against 1, whatever it is. It would be very tragic. So we must contain this thing, because the way it is going, it's embarrassing, but I'm sure you guys have also picked wherever you are the underlying the undertones. And the undertones also have to do with sharing of resources. Sharing of resources is a very delicate thing because it goes beyond appointments. Is it the state largesse that is being shared that is inequitably distributed?
In politics, is it that is the feeding trough some people cannot reach with their mouths?
Yes.
That's why they're making noise.
How far are you from the feeding trough?
and which last week we were told which kitchen are you at?
It's still the issue of the kitchen. But for me, I'm more concerned at what the Wananchi interpret this to be, more than what the issues that we will take to boardrooms and talk about law and tradition. It's a very simple thing.
Unaambia Wakenya nini?
When Moi came, people expected Kibaki to throw Moi to jail.
Yes.
Kibaki did not.
He actually reconciliatory.
The most peaceful, the most interesting transition was, and more amicable, was the one between Uhuru and Kibaki. So this is the only one that has come to be very, very fragile and very, very heated.
Ken. If you look at the Uhuru Kenyatta presidency and the Ruto presidency as we close now, what is your take home from their relationship, and what will you look for Kenya in future?
I think I'll sum it up the way I think the retired president summed it up some time ago. And we were at that meeting, right? The last question that was asked, and I think it was asked by Mwinze. I think the president says the question was, what have you learned from your presidency? What are lessons you draw? He says power is fleeting. Then he said something else, but to the context of
it's just that you have it now and the next day you don't have it.
Work for the good of the people, something like that.
Yes.
Yes, I think the lessons, because I have voted now from 2002, right? That was my first election. I voted 4 times, right? Power is fleeting.
Of course, the other issue that we need to put into context is Kenyans know that Uhuru was not entirely fair to Ruto.
Yeah.
And some of the things that are happening now, actually it was served on Ruto's dish by Uhuru. Withdrawal of cars, fuel.
Security.
Yeah. But I think then that is where the strength of the springboard to better perception by Ruto lies. That in showing that he's not vengeful, in making sure that Uhuru's retirement is he gets all he needs, would give him a more softer appreciation by Kenyans than to look like he's in a revenge mood.
Sure.
1 year later in office, you're still digging out walinifanyia nini. So that's not statement, and that's what I really that's the feeling I have. That yes, you went through this under the hands of
the president.
Be the big brother now.
But be the better one.
Yeah.
Be the better one, because then people will appreciate. But anyway, if the president is a Christian, we praise before the cabinet meeting starts. So I think that is what the spirit that we should have. But as you said, Charles, precedent is very bad. If this would be very bad if it continues like this. You don't know how else it could be, because the reason why, and I always say, the reason why the President Ruto's juniors are talking so with spite against Uhuru means that they must be a source of that kind. Where do they get the comfort to deal with them like that? If you are a State House official and you get a letter from the office of the former president and you reply on SMS,
or a late night call.
That's contempt.
Late night call. We are not going to do this. I mean, and then it becomes a question of, we fueled the fuel in the May. Ken was asking a few minutes ago, if these Uhuru's fuels were fueled in May, have they been static from that time up to today? And I wish I had a fuel which you fuel from May, and
you can use it until July.
The next is July. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
But I think the audacity those guys have is just baffling. You cannot say you fueled in May
and put it in a statement.
Yeah.
It's just arrogance.
And that is when now, and that is when now the bigger man, should clamp down and say, well, guys, this office is about decorum.
Yeah,
this office is about dignity. This office is about
respect.
Honor. Yeah, there are things we may not be happy about.
Yeah,
but we're here.
In any case, if you look at the crumpling around Gachagua, when they meet, the language is different. Like at the Corino Church, you'll just say, like they were asked the Corino to unite, like we have not asked them to fight
the National Prayer Day.
But when they go out back, when they are out there, the language is very different. We are being harassed. We are not getting what we should. We are being, I didn't even get a chopper. And he has gotten a very good mouthpiece, the governor of Nyeri. And every politician needs that kind of person. That Kenyatta had Murade, so people would understand everything that Murade said, where it had been cleared from somewhere. So if we really want to understand what Gachagua is thinking and what he's working on, and listen to
Mutahiga.
Thank you.
So, gentlemen, I want us to close. Your last words, Tanui, on this issue.
I have always said there are two sides to a story, I think, in politics, and I'll be happy to listen to the people around the president and what they think they are after or what they want to show. Maybe they have a side that we do not know, Ken, and they look at things differently. I don't know. But for me, this is a needless war. It will send the wrong signals to Kenya, and Uhuru will emerge a better person because you look like a victim. The people always listen to the underdog.
And coalesce around them.
And I almost forgot. There's an analogy that comes from that the President Ruto has been used a lot in, especially among the Kalenjians when he was campaigning. And even today, they have been talking about it, that if I want to dig a hole that I want to throw you in, make sure that you don't dig too deep, because it may be you that will be thrown in. So don't go in and dig so fast, so furiously with clay, thinking you are digging for Uhuru, but maybe 30 years later
you'll be thrown in.
You'll be thrown into that hole.
Very true.
Yeah.
Ken?
Mine is, I think, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. And we have seen the president has extended that olive branch today. Let's see who will be in that team, led by Felix Koske. And let's see the outcome of it. This needs to be resolved. Actually, it's a unnecessary noise that we don't need as Kenyans right now, with a lot of things that is happening. It's like a drunkard outside your compound. You really try so hard just to tell him, boss, usipige kelele na huko kidogo. So this kind of noise, I don't think we need to be really part of it as Kenyans right now. It's noise that it's State House, and State House is offense, right?
And you can be inferred wrongly when you say drunkard outside your compound.
I know what you
know, Tanui. This man is
already thinking. No, I mean it in the most positive of a way. If I'm living in a village and there's this guy who constantly akitoka kuburudika ako na kelele, I'll talk to them nicely and tell them, you know what? Don't infer more than I'm saying. So it's a noise that can be sorted by someone jumping over the fence.
I just remembered something. I just remembered something that that almost went off my mind.
Yes.
Long ago, as a reporter in Nation, there was a story that Kones, the late Kones, who had been removed from government as a minister, still maintained government security.
Yes.
And it was the side of John Kipkoech, who had succeeded in that, was saying, how can Kones still have government security?
Yes.
And he's sacked as a minister. So the news editor, Mutegi Njau, told me to look for Kones, and we need to establish whether he has security.
Yes.
So not knowing the mechanics and the workings of government, I called, and Kones told me he was at CMC. He was picking his fever. That was a Land Rover Discovery. Not CMC, I think, it was under repair. So I go there, and he asks, so what is this thing you are saying? So he laughed. I will never forget that laugh. He laughed. Yeah. He said, I was the internal security minister, office of the president. Do you know the secrets I carry? It is in the interest of the president to know I am safe. When he goes to bed, even if he doesn't like me, he wants to know how he's Kones when he wakes up. Because if anything happens to me, they will say he's the one who killed me. You see?
Yes.
So, government maintains security of ministers. I later learned from Murengo that when he was at the most critical level of government, the biggest critic, he had actual government security. The reason is, in the eyes of government, state machinery, if anything were to happen to Murengo, who will be accused?
The government.
Yes. So he was asked, please choose any police officer, I think two, whether they are your cousins, your brothers, wherever they are in this formation in Kenya, and send and we'll deploy them to you. You are the one to choose.
Yes.
Because it is in our interest to ensure that state security is not compromised by you being killed, and then the president is blamed. Moi. Yeah. And this is the same thing that, to me, the same principle applies to Ruto. Yeah. It is in his interest that he does not create an exposure level for this, for Uhuru or Gachagua, and if anything happens, they'll say it is him. And all it needs is people who have evil intentions that they know will be blamed, then they strike. And it will not, that is what has happened to Raila. If anything were to happen to Raila, even if it is, sorry to say, a love triangle or whatever it is, or a land dispute, or people will say who killed him.
Someone else.
We don't want them dead, but imagine.
Yes.
So for me, clearly, state power also requires that for self-protection.
Yes.
To deter. You are the one who ensures. And that's why at times people used to say, oh, there's a white car following me. And we later learned some of these white cars following me actually intelligence people, security following you, not necessarily to eliminate you, just in case anything happens, because at that time you are most vulnerable. And I can tell you, if I were, if we were to follow the same format, the people who need the most security now, the most security is Gachagua and Uhuru and their associates. If anything were to happen to them, even an accident,
a minor accident,
even an accident, like the one in Malawi, who will be blamed? So at times when you pursue the agenda that it's like perpetual war, you also have to look at, supposing something goes wrong that I have nothing to do with, how will I extricate myself? People will still see my hand. And that, ladies and gentlemen, reminds you of the accident, Muge and Okondo. Remember Bishop Muge? Bishop Muge was warned by Okondo, the Busia supremacist, Kanu Supremo that time, don't step in Katagwa. And when he was driving, he was hit by a lorry driven by somebody called Mekanori. People, for Okondo to say that nobody knows up to today whether Okondo had anything to do with the accident. But the fact that he had warned him not to go there, and an accident happened, he lived and died with that still on his...
I remember that. I remember is it the Gado cartoon? We drew Okondo with a tongue around his body.
No. What happened is Okondo had, he was a very enthusiastic Kanu guy. So he went in these islands in Busia, like Victoria, recruiting Kanu members, because there was a national members drive, Kanu members drive. Then he ended up in an island that happened to be Uganda. People didn't know. His team didn't know. So they went into Uganda territory, recruiting Kanu members. So Mado drew a cartoon of him standing on the shores of Lake Victoria and pulling that island using his tongue into Kenya.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think you've captured it. Ken, anything else you want to say?
I'm good. Let's watch. Let's see what happens.
Let's watch.
Yes, let's see what happens.
Welcome.